This is 612 ABC Brisbane.
What you pay for groceries. You've been telling us here at 612 ABC Brisbane that a basket of groceries doesn't... Well, you're paying a lot more for that than you used to. So the report into the grocery inquiry has come down today. You've heard from the ACCC Chairman Graham Samuel. Well, let's see what the Queensland Retailers Association thinks. Executive Director Scott Driscoll, good afternoon. Oops. Scott, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Kelly.
I just picked up the wrong line. Sorry about that. Let's go through the three major points. First one, unit pricing. Lots of people saying, yay, this is fantastic.
Look, all very well, so long as, and we haven't seen the detail, and the devil's always in the detail when governments get into this sort of commercial stuff, as long as the imposition isn't going to cost consumers more at the end of the day. And, you know, I've heard some people make arguments that this is not going to be something that's cumbersome. We'll try to get into the retail environment and try to run a retail store, and particularly in an independent sector where you don't have massive head offices that can just press a button and make it all happen. There will be cost involved, and the only people that will pay the price there are consumers.
So you think that this will hurt the independents more than it hurts the big ones?
Oh, there's no doubt, and I think Graham Samuel knows that and acknowledges that indeed there will be a flow-on effect far greater to independent retailers where the sort of the head office mentality isn't there. I mean, you've got a lot of very small to medium-sized independent supermarkets out there run by Australian families that this will impact very heavily on.
How much more is this going to cost us then, to have the independents put up a unit price?
Well, this is the thing. You've got to look at it on a case-by-case basis, and that is the whole problem with a lot of what I've read today in what's been handed down by Graham Samuel and the ACCC. There is a lot of contradiction in the report, and to say it will cost X in every case, or the comparison between oranges and oranges, when in fact there might be oranges and pears, literally, is quite a furphy.
What do you mean by furphy? What's wrong with this?
Well, throughout the report, you see a lot of areas where there's contradiction. You see where they're talking about, and I've just heard Graham Samuel on your program just now, saying Coles will turn out to be the cheapest chain. Now, if you look at an independent that might be a Foodworks or a Super IGA or a Foursquare, for example, who's to say that in those independent retailers or an independent grocer or an independent butcher, who's to say that that local community independent retailer is not indeed better quality, better price than the Coles supermarket juggernaut or the Woolworths supermarket juggernaut in that area? They're not even properly looking at it. They're not comparing apples with apples.
Is it ever possible then to compare apples with apples?
Not easily, and that is the problem when governments try to get too clever about getting into the commercial realities of these things. I mean, we saw this as a pretty simple way forward for the ACCC and for the federal government. The federal government, whether they want to play on semantics or not, effectively promised the people of Australia that there would be lower prices for groceries. Whether they want to quibble over whether that was a direct promise, indirect promise, or not LAW law, I don't know. But that was what I think people took out of their election promise. Now, the easiest way to do that is definitely bring in competition, greater competition for the Coles and Woolworths duopoly. It's there now. It just needs to spread and to propagate right around every suburb, and that is from the independent Australian-owned retailers.
Is having more competition going to help any of the independents?
Well, look, competition is good. We agree with that much. But what you don't want to do is sell the farm and basically ask Uncle Sam or someone from the UK to come in and basically take a huge share, do a Coles and Woolworths on consumers, and then send the profits all back overseas.
And from what I can tell, Scott, just from what I've read, even in the report that came through, it was all about foreign investors being able to come in. I didn't read anything about encouraging Australian investors.
Kelly, I'm the same. I've got to say this is a really concerning thing when you've got the Australian body that's supposed to be looking into getting some better competition into the supermarket retailers, and the Australian government all talking up the idea of bringing in foreigners. I mean, we've got an industry here that can deliver competition, put genuine downward pressure on pricing, if only things like creeping acquisitions, land banking and the like were hit on the head by the government against the Coles and Woolworths tactics.
Okay, so unit pricing and grocery choice both get the big cross from the Retailers Association. What about these creeping acquisition laws?
Well, can we talk about Grocery Watch, which is effectively what it is. I mean, this is going to be $14 million of taxpayers' money spent telling you what you could have paid last month at Coles and Woolworths. So I'm well beyond trying to understand how that's actually going to do anything for pricing. But the creeping acquisition laws, if they've got some teeth, great. But I've spoken to Graham Samuel on this personally, and he's only prepared to look at, and he outlined this on your program, where the major chains actually bite off little pieces of the pie to grow in a slow way. Why is that? Why not look at where they actually go out and land bank, whereby they buy up land so that competitors can't? Why not look at that? And he's basically told me, no, I'm not going to do that until the government changes the laws. Well, the government should change those laws and get tough on this. Now, if a Coles or a Woolworths is simply going out to buy a parcel of land a kilometre down the road from where they've got an existing shop in a region they've already got a saturation, why should that be allowed when the express purpose is to lock out Australian competition?
Yeah, and one might argue it's anti-competitive.
Exactly.
There have been admissions today that most of this will do nothing for prices. It'll just let you know where things were cheapest a month ago. And this is the real sad thing about it. I mean, I don't know what the upshot and cost of this inquiry was, but there's been an awful lot of expectation ever since Kevin Rudd promised that there would be lower grocery prices if he took the helm. We've now seen the ACCC deliver effectively a document that won't deliver any of that. In fact, it opens up and sends off a lot of money overseas if it follows through and gives overseas retail giants more of a piece of the pie. I mean, there is only so much pie here, Kelly. I mean, effectively, Australian retail's held the key. At the moment, the ACCC's report, gives no sort of hope that the real people that can put downward pressure on pricing for consumers, the Australian independently owned retailers, will get any sort of daylight out of this. But the government, they're the ones that make the final determinations. Hopefully, they'll listen to the things that we've been saying. We'll continue to shout loud about this. They better not get this wrong or they'll be letting a lot of people down. Scott Driscoll, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Scott Driscoll is Executive Director of the Queensland Retailers Association. And the Minister for Consumer Affairs, Chris Bowen, has today said that the government never promised that prices would be lower. The words downward pressure were used, but apparently that doesn't mean lower prices. Ian Jarrett is from the Queensland Consumers Association. Ian, good afternoon.